These Datamined Heralds of Galactus cards are wild and include my single favorite card they've ever made. But we start with the big man himself, Galactus First Steps. It looks like Second Dinner is taking the opportunity of the Fantastic Four First Steps movie to remake one of the biggest, baddest dudes in the entire game. This is a 6'10 Galactus with really weird text. The best way I understand it is what he does is when you draw him, the next card you play becomes his Herald. And his Herald is not necessarily like it's turning into anything, it's like a status that gets attached to the card. And what that means is, as long as the Herald is winning the location that the Herald is at, Galactus will get +3 power. So let's say you're playing an Iron Patriot deck, it's turn 2, you drew Galactus, you play Iron Patriot. If you are winning that location at the end of every single turn, Galactus will be gaining 3 power in hand. Now, I assume there will be some visual indicator for this, because if there was no visual indicator for this, it would be likely one of the most unfair and unfun abilities they ever put into a game of Marvel Snap. However, I think even with a visual indicator, this card has high potential to be extremely strong. When you think about just how often 3 power makes the difference between am I willing to contest this and am I not willing to contest this, the way in which this card can intensify the snowball of a game where you're playing things like Iron Patriot and Wiccan is really, really powerful. Unlike other 6-drops, this is a card that you don't actually hate to see in hand early, which is rare for a card like this. It is actually accruing value in your hand when you draw it early, as opposed to most other 6-drops that are not Red Hulk. This, to me, looks like a Red Hulk that you have control over, which is to say it's going to have a much higher average outcome, or maybe not average outcome, but like it's going to have a much higher outcome where you know what you're getting, you're able to influence what you're getting, and it's not in the control of your opponent. I think this card is likely to become one of the premier big guys in the entire game, if not the premier big guy in the entire game. The larger question for me is, will decks that want to play big guys actually be relevant in Marvel Snap? When you look at how this metagame is currently developed, if you're just playing one big guy on the final turn of the game, I don't think that's a very good strategy. But if you're doing Wiccan stuff, this is perhaps the biggest, meanest big guy to pair with your Wiccan stuff, so you have multiple options, so you can play this guy in one lane and then a couple other things in another lane. That's sort of the role that I think that archetype as a whole is largely missing. A lot of Wiccan's big guys are sort of big guys with abilities. You're doing things like Magneto or Eliath or whatever, right? This guy is just big. And being able to just guarantee win one lane is very valuable because it means you don't have to invest a lot in that lane and you can spend almost the entire rest of the game investing elsewhere. So if this guy gets big enough, he is going to be a major, major, major problem. And frankly, I think the line for big enough is about 20 power. If you get 4 procs of this guy, that's the biggest guy in the game. That's bigger than the Infinite. He's the biggest man of all time. If you don't get 4 procs of this guy, he's still very, very large. I think on average, if you're drawing him, you're looking at probably 3 procs a game. Because as someone who's played a lot of Iron Patriot, one of the things that really sticks out to me about Iron Patriot is just how often you just don't feel able to contest it meaningfully. Because you know if they're playing Iron Patriot, they're also playing like a 3-5 or a 3-6 or a 3-8 or something along those lines to back it up. And if they have the Iron Patriot in a lane where nothing else is, then suddenly you can't even contest it. And so this is sort of the kind of thing that intensifies that. The nightmare play pattern with this is Iron Patriot on 2, it's the Herald also, you follow it up with like a Speed, a Copycat, a Gladiator. That lane was not a lane that they had stuff in. They can't reasonably contest the Speed, the Copycat, the Gladiator. You start stacking advantages, and then you just never stop stacking advantages. Silver Surfer for First Steps, aka Shalabal, seems to me like it's not the greatest card of all time. It seems like another Prodigy, except it can't copy ongoings, and I think that ongoings are actually the more valuable thing to copy with Prodigy, largely speaking. Like, when I was playing Prodigy, it wasn't necessarily just ongoings, but it was like repeatable triggered abilities that I was really trying to copy. I was trying to copy things like Galacta, I was trying to copy things like Claw or Cerebro and Cerebro 4. All of that is what was really going on with Prodigy, which has similar stats and a similar ability, although it is harder, I would say, to actually get Prodigy online than to get Shala Ball here online. I do think that she compares unfavorably. So this is a card that looks cool, but ultimately, I think when I look at it, what I see is they just did the Grandmaster again. And that's not a bad spot to be in. Eventually, one of these Grandmasters or a bunch of these Grandmasters will add up into something greater than that. But as is, I can't see this card being much more than niche. I see what they're going for with the Silver Surfer part of it. One of the things that really compels me about this is that if it's an end of turn ability, if you're winning the lane the Silver Surfer is at, you can get a second Silver Surfer proc. That's really, really compelling to me. And it sort of speaks to, like, maybe I want to be playing, you know, Brood in another lane. I want to be playing Sebastian Shaw in the Surfer lane, get a big Surfer, get a big Sebastian Shaw, then I have the second Silver Surfer proc that goes across to my Brood guys. Like, that dynamic specifically, where the only other actual card with it on reveal at the end of the game in the lane Shala Ball is in is Silver Surfer, that's the thing that speaks to me about this card. That thing specifically of getting an extra Silver Surfer proc for free is very, very compelling on something that is already 3 cost, right? You don't have a lot of those options in the deck that are good for doing that. It's just, we had that card. It was Prodigy, right? We had Prodigy. We could do that. It wasn't good at copying Silver Surfers, but I think you'd argue Galacta is better than copying Silver Surfers, and we don't get a ton out of it. Another card in the Surfer deck that you might want to copy is an on reveal. Maybe double Gambit is an interesting way of going about this, like getting a Gambit, then getting a second Gambit. That kind of stuff seems cool as well. I just sort of think that on the whole, this is a card that's largely happening at the end of games in Surfer decks, and then I don't know if it has the stat line to make it into something like Iron Patriot or whatever. However, there is absolutely a world where you go Iron Patriot into this second Iron Patriot, and they just feel so terrible because if you hit that first Iron Patriot, you just win the second Iron Patriot too. It's not bad. We've seen from Misery videos we've seen from Misery gameplay that Misery on an Iron Patriot is like fairly compelling. It's definitely the kind of thing that is good with that kind of thing. So far, I'm looking at Iron Patriot and I'm looking at these cards and I'm like, okay, I can build an all snowball deck. A deck that is based on taking aggressive posture and never letting go of it. And I think that is an interesting way to go about this. It's not like it's unbeatable or anything, but it definitely punishes decks that take a while to get set up. It gives... Part of the thing I like about Iron Patriot is that it sort of explicitly punishes these combo decks that typically go over the top of mid-range decks. Having more ways to lean into that feels like it gives mid-range decks more ability to variance their way out of just instant losses to like combo decks. And I do like that dynamic. I don't think this is stronger than Iron Patriot, but I am at least interested in considering that approach. At the top, I mentioned maybe my favorite card ever. This is it. This is a card that says no to Nimrod. This is a card that says no to Hela. I just love that it exists. I cannot wait for this card to come out. Stardust, I need you to come and save me from the nightmare. I think that this still allows for multiple combo decks to exist. It does nothing to Mr. Negative. It does nothing to Move Bounce. But one of the things that has really made me feel bad is that we just haven't had anything to meaningfully be like, not even like necessarily a one-card answer, just like, stop doing this, please. Just even the option to add something to your deck like Mobius to Mr. Negative for all of these other combo decks. This does that for Hela. This does that for the Nimrod deck, which just got a boost with Kid Omega. I am very, 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 very happy that this right here is a card they're actually making. This is like one of those situations where I will not have any questions about this card. I'm just going to give it like 7 thumbs up. Greatest card they've ever made. I'm extremely happy. There are still other combo decks that you can play that dodge this. So if you're a degenerate combo player, there are tons of things you can still be doing. I just think it's good that there is an actual answer to this stuff. in large part because that allows them to actually make that stuff stronger. If Mobius didn't exist, they would have to be nerfing Mr. Negative on the regular. But because he does exist, they don't have to do that. And so this is something that legitimately allows them to put more power into those archetypes and to make the games more dynamic without causing the problems that those archetypes often cause because there is no card like this. This card reads extremely exciting, and then you reread it, and then you're like, oh man, that's actually really sad. So this is how I'm reading it. Please feel free, if you think I'm wrong, let me know. I mean, you don't have to let me know. I know there are going to be people that think I'm wrong about this. I read this as it only happens once. It says when you play your next 6-cost card. This is a 3/4. When you play your next 6-cost card, it doubles in power. I do not read that as play 2 6 costs and it's 16. I read this as the world's most boring 3/8 of all time. Now, how good is the world's most boring 3/8 of all time? I suspect the answer is better than she is boring. Like, this is a card that is a 3/8 if you play a 6-drop. We know what the current 3/8 in the game is. That's Gladiator. He sells games all the time. Frankie Ray is never selling games. The question is going to be, how reliable are you at playing a 6-cost card? And how much is it worth it to risk not playing a 6-cost card and instead playing a 3/4, aka Cyclops, that does literally nothing? Is that risk reward greater or less than Gladiator at 3/8, where he's pulling all your opponent's big guys, selling the game, and you immediately lose? Or just something like Copycat at 3/5, which is just never actually going to be as bad as the downside risk on Frankie Ray. Again, if this card doubles, maybe there is way more to it here. Maybe this is the goated Wiccan card of all time, and we're playing Wiccan with a bunch of 6s. Maybe that's cool as hell. Couple things that come to mind with this card, though. Sasquatch comes to mind as a discountable 6. Mockingbird comes to mind as a discountable 6. Those are also spaces that I think make a lot of sense for Frankie Ray. If you're playing a Sasquatch deck with tempo in it, which currently exists, this could be a really good option. If you're playing a Mockingbird deck with tempo in it, again, discountable 6. That's the kind of thing that we want here because it's not a card that costs 6 that has to be played. It is a 6-cost card, so it doesn't matter what the actual number on the card is, as long as the base cost is 6. So I do want to keep an eye out, not just for Wiccan, who I feel like I've been mentioning a lot. This could really easily be Wiccan season in this season, but also for things like that. That also opens you up to the buffers, right? One of the things about the Sasquatch deck, it's playing Galacta. It can probably play Gwenpool. If you're getting buffs on Frankie Ray, then suddenly she's really, really big. Imagine a world where you play Galacta into Frankie Ray Mysterio into 2-cost Sasquatch. That's a 12 or a 14 power Frankie Ray and a Sasquatch. A lot of strong stuff going on there if you are able to pull that off. Buffing her seems really compelling in those discounted 6-drop shells. Speaking of buff decks, a lot of the decks right now are these Galacta, Gwenpool, Surge piles of cards. And this guy kind of frightens me because I've been playing a Galacta or like a Gwenpool Sarah deck recently, right? One thing that really sticks out about this card, the Fallen one, is that if you Galacta it, that's basically Sarah, right? You get 3 extra energy, playing it on turn 5. You have a bunch of extra energy going into turn 6. You have 9 energy. It's just like, oh, that's really good. You set yourself to 8 and then you gain the 1 for the turn. That's really strong, just baseline. But then what happens if you Surge it? What happens if you Gwenpool it, right? All of this stuff where it's like, I feel like the floor on this card is basically Sarah, and the ceiling on this card is like, I managed to Surge into Gwenpool into this, right? And it's just like the biggest thing ever. You have the most energy ever. Your tech deck just gets a bunch of free ability to play cards. That's what scares me about this card. And that's not even getting into like, you can symbiote Spider-Man this. Like, there is absolutely a world where you go symbiote Spider-Man into this guy, activate the symbiote Spider-Man, I have 12 energy. There's so much dumb stuff that you can do with this guy. He is a very scary guy. He is one of the more exciting cards in this season, and frankly, maybe the scariest, even with all of the other stuff I've talked about. We get Stardust in this season, who can answer a lot of the combo decks that are based on cheating stuff onto the board, but we don't have a card that can answer cheated energy. We can do things like Mobius Acera. There's nothing that answers, my opponent just has 12 energy. I can't do anything about that. And that is the kind of non-interactive thing that often sets off alarm bells in my head. Things that cannot be interacted with are always the scariest things to me. Luckily, Symbiote Spider-Man and this are like the most interactable cards of all time. You Cosmo that stuff, you Red Guardian that stuff, who cares? We're good, it's fine, whatever, right? But it is still a card with a lot of scary potential, both in good stuff mid-range Surge Galactic Wenpool decks, which are already good right now, and of course, in the more maximalist idea of comboing it with something like Symbiote Spider-Man. There's some really scary stuff that can happen here. 12 energy, you can go Hobgoblin Galactus same lane. It's just a lot. Cosmic Ghost Rider, a 5/7 with an on-reveal ability that removes the text of the cards in the front row at the location he's played at. This card, I think, is actively pretty good and will likely shift the metagame slightly. And what I mean by that is there's a couple of cards that are very often played in the front row that are probably going to get worse if this card sees any meaningful play. Things like Madam Web, that's probably going to get a little bit worse. Turning that off late into the game. Turning off the text of move scalers. Turning off the text especially of ongoing cards. Cards like Goliath are going to get worse. Cards like Morbius are going to get worse. Counterplay cards. Mobius might get a little bit worse with this. This is a legitimate answer to stuff like that. Galacta, very often in the front row, going to get a little bit worse here. I think this card is statted poorly enough that it might not be the kind of thing that makes the cut in every deck. 5 cost is a lot to ask for an ability like this. It is the kind of thing that can win games extremely easily, though. This is basically the most expensive tech card in the game. And when you compare it to something like Enchantress or Shang, it is more general, but it's more like a 5-cost Red Guardian to me. One of the big upsides of Red Guardian, though, is that he's always on rate. He's never going to be bad because he's still basically a 3/5. You can play him to follow up an Iron Patriot if you don't have priority. You get to feel pretty good about that. And this guy costing 5 does matter a lot for his impact and his playability, but I do think that there probably is something to this card. It is a card that has some real applications, I think. It's just a question of whether or not the rest of the deck is going to be able to carry you enough that this guy is going to be able to do his thing. Because the way tech goes in decks right now, it's like a minimal but still substantial investment in points and then a bunch of different answers. This guy wants a deck where you're like Brood Abs Manning, basically. He wants to be the Legion in a Brood Abs Man deck where all the other cards are what is actually creating the power, and then you just want like a card that's like, actually, you can't go over the top of me. That's the kind of role that this card could have. Airwalker's a little scary to me. 3/4 that when it gets destroyed goes and gets a 4-cost card is just like, oh, there's probably something stupid you can do with that. Like when I look at this, I see Kid Omega in this, and I'm like, oh, that just tutors a 4-drop on 3. Whatever 4-drop you have or want to have all the time, you Kid Omega this, you get 6 power or 5 power on your Kid Omega, and then you're just like, oh, I also got a free 4-drop. That seems pretty good. Like, it just seems like the kind of thing where it's like, I don't know what that 4-drop is supposed to be, but that just seems like a baseline powerful interaction that will limit how many 4-drops they can even make. Like, I don't know what the hell they're supposed to do about that. Like, this is just like, they have permanently put in the game a 2-card tutor whatever 4-drop you want. I don't know why they would do that. Like, it just seems like now every time you make a 4-drop, you have to be like, does this break this card? Does this break Airwalker? Well, why? Anywho, this is still a card that's like, it's weird enough, and I can't think of a specific application enough that I can say it's good. Like, I can't look at this and say it's definitely going to break anything or anything like that. But it just sets off baseline alarm bells in my head where I'm like, surely there's something stupid you could do with that, right? Like, Phoenix Force, maybe? Like, there's gotta be something dumb that you can accomplish if you're doing this. And I would imagine that works. Here's my question. Does this guy go to the graveyard before his ability resolves if he dies? Because that's a really important question in the world where you are Phoenix Forcing. Because if you're Kid Omegaing this into a Phoenix Force, if that Phoenix Force enters before this guy is actually dead, it won't revive this. But if you revive this, it's just like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good guy. Alternatively, if you're doing this to tutor your Phoenix Force, the other way it could work is if this card does not enter the graveyard before its effect goes off, that could be good for you because you get the card you actually want to Phoenix Force into the graveyard, and then this guy goes and gets the Phoenix Force, and it always gets your multiple mana or whatever. Also makes sense to me. 4/6, revive one of your discarded or destroyed 3 costs here actually strikes me as the kind of thing that might be able to see play in like some sort of Goon Knight adjacent deck. There's been some Gambit surfering happening recently. I think this could be a reasonable card in that context. I just think the numbers on this card are not as bad as people think. Like, it just sort of makes sense as, like, if you're able to, like, grind out some value, discard their cards, bring back your things, there's probably something compelling to be done with this. I just don't know if that actually happens. But this is the kind of thing that's like, I think Black Bolt style deck. I think, the Proxima Midnight Surfer style deck. Those are the things that this card makes me think about. And it's not that bad in that context. Like, it is like a fairly interesting kind of thing to examine. And I think there is probably something here. It just strikes me as like, it's going to be fairly niche if it is. And I'm not sure how strong it's going to be if it is. But it is an interesting enough card for sure. Red Shift is maybe the most goated discard card of all time. Discard the leftmost card in your hand to add a copy of a card with the same cost. What this actually kind of does is let you play Agatha Hela. Like, it just does, right? Agatha's always the leftmost card in your hand. This always discards Agatha. You Hela it back. You play Black Knight into this. It's always discarding Agatha. If this is your only 2-drop, she's only ever going to play this on your, like, it gotta make sense. Like, honest to God, like, this is, like, actually just a card that makes me seriously want to consider putting Agatha Harkness into my deck. Because if you put Agatha Harkness into your deck and you turn her into upside, you keep the card, you discard Agatha, you get her into the graveyard, and you effectively drew a card for doing all of that because Agatha started in your hand instead of in your deck, which means you're more likely to get to your Hela. It actually legitimately makes sense. This card makes me incredibly grateful that Stardust exists because, holy crap, I don't want to deal with a world where this is a thing. I would be really mad at this card if Stardust didn't exist, but Stardust does exist, so I don't have to worry too hard about the Hela gamers, at least if I want to choose to beat them. Thank God. But this is a card that otherwise I would have spent 5 minutes yelling about because of how good it made Hela. Straight up. I can't really tell how good Terrax is. There are two sort of conflicting things in my mind. The first is, I feel like a lot of Darkhawk decks are pretty terrible at actually winning early locations, and so this is going to put rocks in your own deck if you're losing it. The second is, though, they kind of did have to nerf 3/3 Rock Slide, and I do wonder if there's a world where we're able to build a more tempo-focused Darkhawk deck. I think also, though, that this season is a season that is encouraging a lot of people to play tempo, thanks to Galactus First Steps and Silver Surfer First Steps. And so I wonder if we just might not have the tools to do that if our 3-drop is a 3/3 and it risks putting the rocks in our deck. But, like, if you can put 3 rocks in your opponent's deck for 3, that's super busted. Like, that is just straight up really damn strong. And it will make me revisit Tempo Darkhawk when this comes out. I will be trying to do this because I love playing Darkhawk decks. I love being able to cope, stay late because I probably blew one of their draws. I like resource denial. I like being able to do that while curving out. A more tempo-oriented Darkhawk deck is kind of exactly where I want to be playing. Like, that's just like, I want to do that. Just hearing those words makes me very happy. And I will kind of be interested in trying it. I don't know how good this guy is going to be, but he's probably going to be one of my pet cards for the season. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. As always, I've been KMBest. You have been phenomenal. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching these Datamined videos. And thanks so much. Oh my God. I forgot to say when the season comes out. I'm pretty sure this is the season after Fantastic Four First Steps. So this is 2 seasons from now. You have been phenomenal, and I have been KMBest. I'll see you in the next one.